Hey there, and welcome to Feeding the Future at SDSU. I'm Kylie Coles, currently serving as the 2019-2020 South Dakota State University College of Agriculture, Food, and Environmental Sciences Advocate. While running for the advocate position, one of the things that I feel that we can do better here at South Dakota State University is communicate, collaborate, and advocate. That's what I'm here to do. With this podcast, my hope is that you feel more connected to the things happening here on campus and in the agriculture community. At the end of the day, I want you to feel empowered to advocate for the things that you're passionate about. Through this podcast, I hope we have conversations about what we're doing here on campus, whether that be from a student or faculty perspective, as well as some advice and expertise from SDSU alumni. Let's get started. Welcome to the first episode of Feeding the Future at SDSU, our podcast. We are super excited today to have with us Dean Killefer, and he is going to share a little bit about some of his experiences and what he sees happening around campus and some of his advice and expertise. So welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Kylie. I'm excited to be here.
First off, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself, whether that be education and your background and where you come from?
Sure. So I grew up in Nebraska, but I've been all over the country. I guess in terms of maybe my more formative years, I grew up in Nebraska in a place called Hastings. It's kind of in south central Nebraska. And from there, I went to college there. It's called a place called Hastings College. And, I had originally had plans on going to medical school, and I was accepted into medical school. I was going to be starting in the fall, but that preceding summer, I had just what I guess I refer to as a transformational experience. I had an opportunity to work in a research laboratory. And this was with a federal research laboratory at the U.S. Meat Animal Research Center. And that was where I found out that I had a real excitement and a passion to do research. And I could work with animals and do all those things. So I kind of re-geared and decided I wanted to go to graduate school where I could maybe focus more on research. And at that point, then I had an opportunity to go to Oregon State University because one of the scientists at the research center became a faculty member at Oregon State University, and he recruited me to come out there as a graduate student. And so I did my doctorate in animal sciences out there, and my focus area was in animal growth and development and biochemistry. And then came back to Nebraska, that same research center, and did a postdoc there.
Wow, that's so cool. So did you grow up in agriculture, or was agriculture like a little bit foreign to you? And how did you get into the animal sciences? Was that through your program, your research program?
Well, I guess maybe more formally it would have been, but growing up in Nebraska is not a lot different than growing up in parts of South Dakota here where agriculture is everywhere.
Absolutely.
So you can't avoid it. And so I was quite involved with a lot of different aspects of agriculture growing up, but I guess the more formal exposure to the animal sciences and the research associated with that would have been at that research center.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So then after your experience there at the research center, how did you get here? How did you get to South Dakota State University and becoming our dean?
All right. Well, so I have a very circuitous route. From what I was just telling you, I was, at that point of being a postdoc, I was back in Nebraska again.
Sure. And
from there, I became a scientist with the USDA Agricultural Research Service. And so I was an animal physiologist at that Clay Center research facility. But then they asked me to utilize some of my expertise in another area and with another species of animal. And so you'll see as I talk, I've worked with a lot of different species. And so I've worked with the main production animals we might be commonly think of here. Mm-hmm. But then when I was a research physiologist, they asked me to go to Delaware, to one of their research stations in Delaware, where they focused on broilers.
Okay.
And broilers have a lot of muscle tissue,
Yes.
And so I was using a lot of my research expertise to understand the growth and regulation of muscle tissue in broilers at that time. Wow. And so I ended up out on the East Coast and had an opportunity. I had conversations with folks at West Virginia University before I had gone out there. They were trying to get me to come to the university there, but I went out to Delaware, and had some opportunities that arose, and I re-entered academia at West Virginia University, which is their land-grant university.
Sure.
And so I was in the Animal Veterinary Sciences program there as a scientist, so as a tenure-track faculty member. I went through all the tenure track process and did all of that. Mm-hmm. Had some just phenomenal leadership growth opportunities there. One was because of my biochemistry background, I was asked by the provost to help lead the development of an accredited biochemistry major at the university. They never had one.
Wow, that's so cool.
So I was leading the teaching of undergraduate biochemistry for the whole university, but they didn't have a major. And so I went through a lot of different steps there, and ultimately we created an accredited program. And wow. So that was very exciting. And then because of my relationships with USDA, I was also asked to help them start and establish the National Center for Cool and Cold Water Aquaculture, the genomics program there. And so I did that in my laboratory in West Virginia and helped the USDA establish the National Center, which was on the other side of the state. And this would be in the genomics area. That was really popular. You had the human genome, the cattle genome, the pig genome, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So I led that process. And from there, University of Illinois had an opportunity for me to lead the meat science muscle biology program there. And so I went to the University of Illinois and was there for about 10 years leading that program. Did a lot of research, had a very, very active research laboratory or program there, a lot of international as well as domestic research. And after about 10 years there, Oregon State University asked me to come back and lead their animal science program. Wow. Because if you remember, I went to graduate school out there. Mm-hmm. So I went back and led that program. Also led the merger of animal sciences with the Rangeland Ecology and Management program. Okay. And merged those two together. And so I led the Animal and Rangeland Sciences department there. Wow. And then we had this wonderful opportunity to come back to the Midwest. Mm. And so that's where my roots are. And this is a phenomenal institution. We have just tremendous leadership and a lot of great vision for the future, and had an opportunity to be able to become part of that. And so here I am now.
Wow. Well, we're so grateful to have you here. And I know you bring that passion and that energy wherever you go. So we're really, really excited to have you here. Is there one specific research project that you were a part of that sticks out as one of your favorites?
Well, probably one of the ones that, and there are a number of reasons that it stands out in my mind, but I was really involved with a lot of the early research in, there's a compound called ractopamine. It's one of the beta-agonist growth promotants. Our laboratory in Illinois was one of the places where a lot of the initial research was conducted. And so being able to participate in FDA research trials, being able to work with a lot of different industry partners and a lot of wonderful graduate students and undergraduate students in my laboratory, and being able to see those graduate students and undergraduate students flourish. Yeah. That probably really stands out in my mind a lot.
Yeah. What drives your passion to come to work every day?
Well, I think some of that changes over time. Sure. And it has for me, and it's always been about people. I really like people. And so whether that is, getting in front of a class of students, in particular early on in my career, I had very large classes with lots of, just wonderful students. That was very exciting for me. Then, having more graduate students, having it at that level, and postdocs and visiting scientists. And then, as I have evolved, I guess, in my career and some of my skill sets, more of the administrative leadership opportunities became available. And now being able to help provide some leadership and guidance to departments, so faculty and all the students that are associated with those programs, or colleges now. And so those things are, I think, being able to work with people, I really like that.
Sure. That's really neat. So something that I know that I have found of great assistance has been mentors throughout my life. And I know as college students, sometimes it can be daunting to reach out to someone and ask, would you consider being my mentor? Do you have any advice for students or young professionals at that who maybe are seeking some of that advice and want to grow in their leadership? And how do you go about doing that?
Well, so there are a lot of folks that I think would be really excited to be a student's mentor. And they're going to come in all different shapes, colors, flavors, whatever you might think.
Absolutely.
And they don't necessarily have to be your professor. Sometimes you will have people that are your professors that are phenomenal mentors, but you'll need mentors for all different aspects of your life. And there are going to be people that it might be somebody in an office down the hall. It might be another student that could be a mentor of yours. But they might really be able to address some specific aspects of your life. Some of them are going to be professional in nature. Others are just personal relationship types of mentoring. How to mentor, being mentored in how to cope with and manage going to another country, for example. So there are people that have done a lot of traveling. They can assist you in that type of mentoring. And really the best way to find those is you have to communicate with people. And you have to be willing to kind of step outside of your shell at times and talk to people. And you'll find out that in general, most people would really like to help you if you are willing to be receptive to being helped.
I think that kind of leads into my next question, which is, what was the best piece of advice that you have ever been given?
Well, I think it probably kind of relates back to that golden rule. Treat other people as you would like to be treated. Mm-hmm. And so I think if you want to be helped by others, you need to be willing to help others. If you treat people well, hopefully they will reciprocate and treat you well in return. So, I think that's very good set of advice to live by.
Absolutely. Yeah. Is there any specific advice that you would have for college students or students specifically here at SDSU that you want to share besides that golden rule?
So, for students that are at SDSU or anywhere for that matter, but if you are here at SDSU, you're at a wonderful institution that provides you so many resources that you probably aren't even aware of. And the advice I always give, in particular to new students, is don't be afraid to explore and experience all the different wonderful things that this university and this community of Brookings has to offer to you. So if you've never been to an opera, go to an opera. If you haven't been to too many sporting events or different types of sporting events, go to those because they are available here. If you want to maybe expand your intellectual knowledge, there's all kinds of lectures, series, speakers present on campus. Go to those. Sometimes they're going to be a little bit uncomfortable for you, but that's part of your learning. And so just really stretch your boundaries a bit and take advantage of this very unique time in your life, because once you graduate and you're no longer a college student or a graduate student, you probably won't have as easy of access to a lot of these types of opportunities and resources. So take advantage of them while you're here.
Awesome. What are some of the favorite things either on campus or in Brookings that you personally enjoy? What would you recommend?
Oh, well, there are just all kinds of things on campus here that
Sure.
are a lot of fun that are associated with campus. I mean, we just recently had a Hobo Days here.
Absolutely.
And the whole week of excitement there.
Yes.
That's really exciting and fun. There are tremendous athletic or musical or performance events on campus. Those are a lot of fun. We have some just beautiful facilities on campus.
We do.
So I think those venues are ones that everyone should go to at least once if they don't have the opportunity to go there more than once. One of the places I think is just really nice on campus is the view from the Wooster Hall in the Alumni Center and looking out at the Campanile. That's probably one of the prettiest spots on campus, for that view. And if you have an opportunity to participate in an event in that room, I encourage you to do that because it's just a very special place.
That's really cool. I've not heard of that location, so I will have to be sure to check it out before I leave in May.
All right.
Awesome. How about the Brookings community? What are some of your hobbies, interests, and where do you fill your time outside of campus?
Well, so I guess in terms of the Brookings community, my wife and I, for example, we enjoy going to the arts festival. That's a lot of fun. To go and participate and see all the neat things that are there. Just going downtown is a lot of fun. There's just kind of an excitement. It's there's some kind of quirky, cute things downtown. So that it's fun to go down there. I guess in terms of me having a lot of just downtime, sometimes that's kind of special for me because I stay fairly busy in my role, but I do enjoy the kind of the standard hunting and fishing things. I really enjoy those. I haven't had as much time to do those as maybe I'd like, but I like that. I'm learning to play guitar. I like to sing, so I'm learning guitar to maybe be able to do some of that.
That's really neat.
Restoring an old Corvette, and it's almost it's done. It's kind of a continuing labor of love. So I get to play with that a lot as well.
That's really neat. That's great. I think it's so important to have those hobbies outside of the classroom or the work setting. I think to re-energize after a long day's work is really important. I know that's something I'm learning as a student too, is that it's okay to step away from work for a little while and have some fun. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. Well, you just gave some good advice. So that it is very important to be able to, separate yourself or step away from, what you do during the day, and do some things that let your mind kind of function in a different way, and it kind of rejuvenates you.
Absolutely. And we have so many opportunities to do so on campus or in Brookings. So
that's right.
There's no better place to do it. What is your favorite SDSU tradition?
So I've been here a little over a year and a half, so I'm still learning more about the traditions, but I think one that is very special here, I mentioned Hobo Days, but I think Little I, or the Little International, is a very special event here on this campus. And the reason I think it's very special is that it brings students together from all the different corners of campus. They're not just a particular major that's involved. We have students from all different disciplines that get involved, and many of them are getting involved in some traditional agricultural activities that they may never have done in the past.
Very true.
And so I think it's a lot of fun seeing because it is a student-run activity, seeing the students take that leadership, run that activity, and it being really successful and a lot of fun. So I think all those together just make that a very special.
It is really unique. Both my parents were alumni here, and my dad was actually the Little I manager when he was here. So that is an event that's also near and dear to my heart. So
great.
That's really cool. What are some of the new things happening or coming up here in cafes at SDSU?
All right. Well, I think some folks, if they've been, say between the dairy science and the animal science building and trying to navigate in there, it's gotten very challenging recently. So we have the Raven Precision Agriculture Center is being constructed as we speak. And so that is going to be just a phenomenal world-class facility. Students are going to have a very unique experience in that facility. And so that's kind of bringing that blend of traditional agronomy or plant science types of disciplines, coupling that with agricultural engineering, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, data sciences, data analytics, bringing all those pieces together in one building, in one big program addressing challenges associated with agriculture. And in this case, that building will focus mainly on agronomy or plant types of challenges, but bringing all these disciplines and their associated technologies and science together to bear on those challenges. And precision agriculture is going to be one of the big drivers in the future of agriculture. And so we've really taken a leadership role in that. Not only did we create the first 4-year degree, but we now will have the nicest facility of its type in the world.
Absolutely.
And so that's really exciting. One of the spin-offs of that is we have precision conservation types of projects going on. So using those same technologies, but now applying them to natural resources conservation. And so some of the students may have heard about the Every Acre Counts program.
Sure.
And so that is an example of this precision conservation. And so using those technologies to best manage and utilize each of the very precious acres that we have on our farms or ranches.
Indeed.
And some of those might be for production purposes, some of those might be for wildlife or conservation purposes. So that's really exciting for us. We have the professional program in veterinary medicine coming up, or our veterinary 2+2 program.
Yes.
And so that will be in the fall of 21. And so we're really excited about that. It's an opportunity for students from South Dakota to get a veterinary degree. We're doing that in partnership with the University of Minnesota the College of Veterinary Medicine. And so that will, students will do 2 years here in Brookings and their last 2 years in St. Paul. And really, these students are going to have an opportunity to have an exceptional experience in the large animal, the farm animal aspects, in addition to the traditional companion animal components of veterinary school. So, this will be just a tremendous asset for not only the state, but for the whole region and nation, because there is a shortage of these large animal rural veterinarians. And so, those are some of the things that are underway now, and we have a big interest in also the bioprocessing area, and so that's kind of a more recent initiative that we have going on, where we're trying to add value to the commodities that we produce so well within the state, and try to capture more of capture and retain that value within the state and grow the industries that might be associated with it.
That's so neat. One of my favorite parts of SDSU is how innovative we truly are and forward thinking in comparison to some other universities that you have the option of attending in this region. That's what makes me excited, and I know a lot of my fellow students feel the same way, how truly innovative we are, and how what we're learning in the classroom is applicable out in the field today. We're really grateful that we have those opportunities on campus, and I'm excited to see where the future of SDSU goes and what it holds for our students. What do you see as the biggest challenge facing agriculture, food, and environmental sciences today, and how are we going to overcome that?
All right. So some of what we might refer to as grand challenges that we as all inhabitants of this earth face, and these grand challenges really are rooted in really one major component. That's our population growth, the human population growth. And if we think about going from 7 to 7.5 billion people to maybe 10 billion people by the middle of this century, so in the next 30 years, that's very daunting. And so think about the challenges that causes. So one of the grand challenges would be, how do we feed all these people? Another would be, how do we provide energy for all of these people? Where are all these people going to live? We're not producing any more land,
right?
But we have a lot more people. So where are they going to live and recreate?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe another example would be, how are we going to educate all those people? And if you think about those 4 grand challenges I just mentioned, we are addressing all of those. So, to be part of a land-grant university, and in particular a lot of the programs that are going on in our college, the College of Agriculture, Food, and Environmental Sciences, when has there been a more exciting time in history to be part of a college like this or a university like this? because we're addressing all those grand challenges head on. And so, what we are doing is really relevant and very impactful. And so, these are just really exciting times for current researchers and future students that are going to be the folks that are leading the way and helping us figure out these challenges. So we're using precision agriculture as an example of how we can most efficiently utilize our limited natural resources to produce more food. Mm-hmm. And we have the safest, most wholesome food supply in the world, and how do we just maintain that and grow the amount that we produce, and be able to conserve our resources and also be able to produce energy for folks. So a lot of our renewable bioenergy resources, we have a lot of research going on in those areas as well. So we really are tackling or addressing a lot of these big challenges.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Dean Killefer, for being with us here today. I know that your advice and your wisdom, your time, talents, testimonies, and treasures are valued by all here on campus. And so I really appreciate you spending a few of your precious moments with us here today. So,
well, Kylie, I was really happy to be here. I'm humbled to have the opportunity to visit with you and just share with folks. And this is a great place. Exciting place, and just wish all the students that are listening out there the greatest of success.
Thanks for joining us for the first episode of Feeding the Future SDSU. Please join us again in a couple weeks as we release our second episode. In the meantime, be great, start here, and ears up, Jackrabbits.